Hello guys, welcome back, and in this video we are going to see how we can design ad book page. And before that, in the last video we saw that we are not able to find this route because we need ID for that, and that was mandatory in that case, right? So without providing ID, we should not be we are not able to basically route to this ad book page. Why is that so? Because we already know that in case of new book item, we won't be having this ID, right? So how we can make it as optional, right? This ID should be actually optional. For that, what I'm going to say is I will just add question mark. Okay, that means this ID is going to be alright guys. We make this ID as optional, and then even if we won't be providing this ID, it should be working as it is. Okay, so let me go back to UI and then we'll see if that is working fine. What I'll do here is I'll just remove this from here. Okay, I'll load the default page, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. Of course, on login only that page is going to be rendered. What error we are getting here is, again we are getting the same error. We'll handle this error later, and this error is actually related to the input element. Okay, so we will handle that error later, but that won't affect our functionality as of now. What I'll do is I'll try to log in reducen21@gmail.com. alright, and then I'll put password as well. So finally I'm going to log in here, and then on login successful only you guys are going to see this book list option, right? That's how we made this menu page, or we made this page, correct? So next what I'm going to do is I'll just click on this book list page. We are able to route to this book list, you can see here in the routes. And then finally if I'll click on add book as well, we should be able to route back to add page. Okay, so let me just click add book. Still it's not able to find this route, and why is that so? Let me go back here, and here this is completely fine. So actually this should be working here. Okay, I didn't save this file, you can see here, right? So I'll just save this file, and then I'll go back to UI. So now you can see here you are seeing this add book page even if I have not provided the ID. So let me show you, if you have provided the ID as well, then also this page will be working, right? Now we are going to design this page, and then we are going to take user input for the books object. Okay, and how we are going to do that, let's see. I'll go back to code, and then I'll open this book add book page here. Okay, so I'm going to just remove this. Okay, in this case of course this is going to be again Ion page. What I'll do here is I'll just copy it from here. I'm going to paste it here. Every time we don't need to write same thing, right? We can do copy and paste. So in this case what we need is we need couple of input there, and how we can do that, let's see. So here what I'm going to say, okay, this is fine, this row column is fine, but we don't need this search here, right? In this case we are going to accept all those data from the user as an admin. Okay, and then one more thing, very first thing what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename this page to book ad, so that we can debug it later in the program if we want, and we can easily debug that. So this is fine. So next thing what I'm going to do is we need one more row over here. Why we need that? Just to make the design much better, I'm going to say row. Okay, and this row is going to be responsible for showing some title or text, and for that I'm going to use app label, of course. Okay, so this label will use, let's say h4 we will use. All right, and in this h4 what I'm going to say is, okay, for now I'm going to just hardcode this value. What you can do is you can, okay, let's not hardcode this, instead just define it. Okay, so export constant, and then this time I'm going to say add book. All right, and then here I'm going to say add book, add all the required book details below. All right, and then I need one more. In that case I'm going to say okay, add book, I can say add book title, not title but add book message, you can say. All right, and then I'm going to say update book message. So I'm going to say update book message. You can name it whatever you want, but it should be, you know, a specific to certain functionalities, right? In this case, of course, add and update. So update book details below. So I'll say update book details below. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to import this both over there. I'll copy it and I'll go back to add book page, and here I'll say okay, import that add book message. Okay, and then update book message as well. So for that I'm going to import update book message as well, and I'll say .js, and then I'm going to define a name here. Okay, add book message. Okay, and I'll assign this add book message. Why I'm again defining one variable in the data variable? Because if let's say we want to change this add book message at runtime or later in the program, okay, we can easily modify this add book message, and then this original add book message won't get affected. Okay, for that I'm just creating a separate variable add book message and assigning the default value of add book message, which is getting imported from the constant. All right, so next I need update book message as well. So I'll say update book message, and then of course update book message, but in this case I'm going to make it small, and then we are good. So here what I'm going to say is okay, we cannot use directly app label here. I will say okay, cut it, and I'm going to use ion column over here. Okay, now inside this column only we should have those label or whichever input element we want. Okay, so this column will have size of course 12. Okay, because I want that text to occupy all those 12, you know, grid position, not position, but all those 12 grid, you know, you can say columns. Okay, so I'll just copy it and I'll just paste it over here. Okay, so here what I'm going to use is of course template literals. You can this template literals, and then here I'm going to use that value. So in this case I'm going to say add book message, and here I'm going to say update book message. Okay, now that both text will get visible over here, let me save it and show it to you. What is the error now? Okay, script, there's some error with the script. And why is that so? Script element is missing end tag. Which element is missing end tag actually? We have this app label. Okay, that's completely fine. H4 is also there. So script is missing end tag. Okay, of course. So script does not have end tag. So for that what I'm going to say is script. Cool. Let me save it and let's see if that works. Yeah, it works. You can see here you are seeing both this title over there. That is actually not looking good, right? We need only one at a time. Either it is going to show add or it is going to show update. Okay, we have two cases over there. So for that we know how we can, you know, show this conditionally. For that we are going to use v directive here, v if in this case. Okay, what I'm going to say here is I'll say okay, v if, right, what I'm going to create one computed property down below. what that will return is not method, but I need computed property. For that we need computed block here. So I'm going to create computed block here. If it is not there, of course you can create that block if you want. Okay, so here I'm going to say, okay, text, we can say not text but the title, page title we can say. Okay, even we don't need these two column, we need only one column, but this message should change actually. For that we should have 2h4. Okay, that's much better than before. Okay, now I'm going to say, okay, we created one computed property page title, and in this case what I'm going to say is, not say, but in this case I'm going to just say, I'm just going to check if this page is having that, ID is there or not. Okay, in the route. So if ID is there, that means this book already exists there, and if ID is not there, means this book does not exist. For that what I can do is, I can say, okay, constant ID equals to, and from where this I not like this, we can say get book ID. Okay, and then here I can say constant book ID equals to, and from where I'm going to take this book ID, of course I'm going to take this book ID from the params. Okay, request params. So for that, how we can access the specific route, we know that we have router object on the view global instance, right? And how we can access that global instance? Of course we need to use dollar symbol over there. So this is how we are going to use it, but this time we don't need router, we need route only. Okay, this is actually called route. Okay, route params. So I'll say this dot dollar route dot params. Okay, then if the params is there, then I'll take ID from there. Okay, so now finally what I'll do is, I'll just return this ID, book ID, right? Now what is the exact error over there? Let me see that. Okay, if I have used, but I have not provided any value above. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and I will go back in template. I'm going to say, okay, if get book ID is there, that means book already not here. I'm going to cut it from here. Here I'm going to put that. Okay, so I'll say if not book ID, that means book ID is not there, then in that case you need to render add book message. Okay, and if that book exists, you need to render update book message, update book message. Let me save it. Okay, for this if we need else as well, right? It is not necessary at all, you can use if also there. Let me show you how you can do that. So I'll just save it and go back to UI. You can see add all the required book details below. Why is that so? Do we have book ID over here? Not book get book ID, we have book ID actually. If we won't be having book ID, then we'll get add message, but in this case we are getting add message in case of book ID is there. Let me just refresh this and we'll see. Okay, you can see now update book details below, right? That means this ID is there, this book is already present somewhere in the database, right? Or in you are fetching the same book and then you are saving the same book here in the client. So now, okay, one spell mistake over there. I'll go back to constant file. Okay, I'll say update. Okay, now you can see update here. I'll just refresh this and then you can see update book details below. Cool. Go back here, add all the required details below. So where I did change actually, add book. All right, fine. So instead of this, you can say this as well. I'll just copy it, and instead of VLs I'll just paste it. I'll remove this. If book ID is there, we need to show update book message. Let me save it, go back to UI, okay, and then I'm going to click on add book. Okay, so you can see add all the required book details below. That means we don't have ID over there. As soon as I'll put ID and I'll click enter, you can see update book details below, right? That is getting changed based on the condition which we have provided over there. So that is how this if VLs directive works actually. Okay, now next what we should do. Okay, we are going to design the page. First we'll design the page and then we'll create the book API. Okay, create book API. So for that we have this. I'm going to just copy this and then paste it. Of course, just below this row I need one more row. Why is that so? I'm going to put update and create button over there. Okay, so I'm going to put that in a different row. So this completely depends on you how you want to design the page. Okay, so feel free to play with this design. And then what I'm going to say here is I need this button over there. Okay, I need this button here. Alright, but this time this button is not going to be route to add book. Instead it's going to be create book, right? I will save it and then I'll rename it as add book button. Okay, and then this is also going to be add book, not let's say it as save. Okay, and then we'll have one more button. Okay, and I will name it as update, but at a time only one button will be visible over there. Okay, so in this case I'm going to say update book button and then the text would be update, and here in this case I'm going to say update book. Okay, so we need to create two different APIs, that is create book and then update book. Fine. So we need this functionality here, function to be registered here. So I'll say update book. For now I'm just keeping it as it is empty, but once we are ready with the design we'll collect all those data and then finally we'll implement this functionality. Okay, so far we are good, right? We have two button over there, and let's go back to UI. We can see, okay, this is taking this much of space. That means there is some design issue. We need to rectify that. How we can do that? Okay, this size, screen size is actually 4. It should not take 4. Instead it should take, let's say, okay, by default size will be 12, and then in medium device it is going to be of type take 4. Okay, this time I'm going to say, not say, but I'm going to put expand. Okay, and how we can do that? You all know that what does this expand mean? Expand is actually a props that is present on view input component, not view input, but you can say view ion button component. Okay, that is view Ionic ion button. Okay, so I'll say block. Okay, that means that button will get stretched to the length of the column. Okay, so here also I'll say expand equals to block. Cool, let me show you how it works. Okay, this is working, but we don't need this much bigger button, right? For that, what I'm going to say is in Excel I'm going to use 2 and 2. We need only a small button over there, and in Excel also we need the button of size 2, which will actually look good in this case. So in large screen we are going to use 4, that is completely fine, and in big screen we are going to say 6, not 12, 6 and 6. That will look good on the smaller device. So let me save it and go back. No, it is fine, right? We have save and update button as well, but this button should be shown based on certain condition, and we know that what should be our condition. If we have the ID over there, then save button should not be there, only update should be there, right? But in the both case, not in the both case, of course, yeah, in the both case, what we need is one more button, and we'll call that button as a clear button. Okay, that means only save and update will get visible based on the condition, not this clear button. Okay, for that I'm going to put one more button here in this row, and I will call it clear button. What this clear button will actually do, this will, once we'll click on clear, okay, this will just remove this ID from here, and then it will delete all those book details data from here as well, and then we'll be having a fresh add book page, and then we should be able to enter new details over there. So for that I'm going to keep clear. Okay, you can add as many as button you want and the functionality you want. Okay, this is just example what I am following here. So here I'll say clear. Okay, but then in this case what I'm going to say is the color should be different. Okay, for that, if I'll go back to app button, we can assign style class as well there, right? And we know that how we are going to assign. So a style class will be class. Let me go back to variable CSS, and here what I'll say is, I'll say okay, this iron button. Okay, if I'll say iron button, that is fine, iron button, and then on this iron button we need to define a class. So I'm going to say okay, we should have a clear button class. Okay, if I'll use this clear button, that will get applied on iron button. Okay, so what I'm going to say is the background color, let's say it's going to be gray. Okay, and then the text of the color should be not like this. I'm going to say hyphen hyphen. This is the way we are going to use in Vue Ionic. Okay, so I'll say hyphen hyphen color is going to be white. So let me just use this clear button class, and then we'll see if that works or not. Okay, so here I'm going to say style class, not style, I'm going to use style class equals to clear button. Cool. So this time I'm going to say this action will be clear book. Okay, so if we defined one functionality here, we also need to have that method present inside the methods block as well. So I'll say clear book. Let me save it and go back to UI, and we'll see if that works. No, that color is not getting applied. That means what I'm going to do here is, let's play with this. Okay, so what I'm going to say is style. I'm just going to use simple style, and then I'm going to say okay, background color is going to be gray, and I'll say gray, and then color is going to be white. Cool. So let me save it and then go back here. I'll just refresh this page. No, still that color is not getting applied. That means we should find a different way to apply those colors over here. Okay, what if I'm going to make this important? Let's see. Still that is not getting applied. That means there's a different way to apply those colors. I will talk on that in the next video, but for now let's design this page first, and then we'll do cosmetic changes. These are small changes called basically cosmetic changes. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is, okay, let it be for now. I'll just remove this, but this save button and update button should be based on the condition, and we know what condition should be there. If let me copy this condition. If this gets true, that means update button should be visible. So for that I'm going to put this condition. I'm going to put this condition in this column. Okay, and in this column I'm just going to put note. Let me save it, go back to UI. You can see we have the update button. But as soon as I'll remove this ID and enter, you will be seeing the save button. That's what the expectation was, right? Now let's start adding input that will be related to book. Okay, so in this case I'm going to say not search book but the book name. Okay, of course type is going to be text, and then label, this time I'm going to say book name. Book name, very first thing. Okay, and then minimum length is going to be of 3 length. You can of course play with these values. If you want to put more restrictions, you can put more restrictions. That's completely on you, but you just need to learn the way we are going to use. Okay, so here this time we don't need this book name separately. Okay, for that what I'm going to say is, okay, we should have a single object book, and then inside the book we are going to put all the related data to the specific book. Okay, so I'm going to say book, and then it's going to be of type object. Okay, so now what I'll do is not object, let's say, okay, make it object so that we can use using key. And how we are going to do that, let's see. So I'll say book dot book name. All right, okay, on input this time are we going to use this? I don't need this now as of now, because this V model will do it works. If we need that later we can do that, so we don't need to register for the input event. Fine, I will just copy this and start pasting it here. Okay, so very first was book name, and in this case I'm going to say, let's say, of course, book what you can say, book code, you can say, right? You can put some code on a book so that it will be easier for you to find those book with that code. So book code, you can take any data you want. Okay, so I'll say book code, right? And the minimum length 3, maximum length is going to be, let's say, 6. Okay, and here I'm going to say book code. Okay, let's follow one thing all across the application, in view application. So every time we are going to take data, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to follow the data in the data property key name in underscore format. Okay, for example, let's say I'm going to define any key on this specific component or on this specific page that is related to view only. In that case I'm going to use camel casing. Okay, but when it comes to sending those data to the API, I'm going to send those data in format of underscore. Okay, so that our Golang can take those data in the underscore format and it will work. So basically our agenda is to follow a certain pattern all across the application, so that it will be easier to understand it, or not understand, but it will be easier to maintain the code. Okay, so this time I'm going to say book underscore name, because this data we are going to send on we are going to send this data on API. So I'll say book.book name, and then I'll say book.book code. Okay, and then here book code is there. Okay, what else we have in book? So here I'm going to say price. Okay, book will be there, and then I'll say book price, right? Book price, and then this time this type is not going to be text, instead it's going to be of type number. Okay, then label will be book, or I'm going to say price. Cool, and then here what I'm going to say is I don't need this length. Okay, let it be for now. If you want to remove it, you can remove it. So here I'm going to say not 3, actually this should be minimum 1. Okay, now here I'm going to say, okay, not 60, actually you can how much a book can cost. Okay, So it may cost of it may be cost of, you can say, $10,000. So how much character will be there? 10,000, right? So 3 and 2 5, so you can say 5 maximum. And then this time I'm going to say book price. Okay, so we have book name, we have book code, then price, and then of course we need some more data. Let's say pub author also we are going to put here. So we'll say book author, who has written this book, right? So I'll say author, and then here what I'm going to say is name at least 3, minimum character will be 3, and then maximum length will be 60. That's completely fine, and I'll say author. All right, and then I'll just copy this again. I'll paste it over here, and here I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be of type number again. Okay, number should be like this, not the capital N. So I'm going to remove this capital N from here, number. And here I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be published year. So label is going to be published year, right? Published year. I'm making this as of now as a free text. You can use, custom element over there to scroll for all of the values present in year. Okay, but for now just consider it as a free text. You can be able to enter those year. Okay, and then the year will be of course 4, minimum, and maximum is also going to be 4. Cool. And in this case I'm going to say published year. All right, so we have published year, we have author, and then what else we have in book? So we can say, okay, page also we can have. So I'll say just copy and I will paste it here. That makes more sense. Okay, actually this is just a structure of the a column where we want to put what data. So I'll say page number, page count here. Okay, and this time this is going to be book page. Cool. And then type is of course going to be number, and here I'm going to say page count. Okay, so that we can show the page count as well. Here everything will be fine. Now I'm going to copy this once more, and I'm going to say what else a book can have. So what else a book can have? Of course book name will be there, and then we can also put description over there, right? So for that we need one more input over there. That will be, we will be taking description for that specific book. So how we can do that? Of course we are going to take description at very last. So I'm going to put that here, and then this time I'm going to say, okay, size this time is going to be, okay, let it be of the same size. Okay, so in size we can say, okay, this time it is going to be of the size 10. We'll adjust these values according to screen size, and then based on how it is looking we'll keep that. Okay, so here I'm going to say book description. Okay, but this time this is going to be of type text. Okay, and I'll say description, but we can keep book as a prefix. That will look good. Okay, fine. Now description should be maximum of, let's say, 1024 character, and then minimum character maybe 0. If we don't want description, we can leave it as it is. Okay, so we are almost good. One more thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to wrap all of these columns inside a form element, and then we'll see if one more property works or not. For that what I'm going to do is I'm going to put required as well. Required, and I'm going to say true. This book name is of course required. So without filling these details, you won't be able to save this book data. Okay, so for all of these input, I'm going to say required as true. Let me save it. And finally, what I will do is I will just wrap all of these input column, okay, inside a form element. And how we can do that, we'll see that. Let me just minimize all of this here. Cool. So I'll just copy this, not copy, but I'm going to cut it from here, cut, and then I'm going to create one form element, right? Form, and this time I'm not going to define any action. I'll do that later, but for now, what I'm going to say is paste here. Fine. I will do formatting of this code so that it looks good. I hope this looks good. Yeah, this is fine. Not like this. Actually, this input should. Okay, let's see if that works. I'll save it and I'll go back to UI. No, this is coming one after another, right? So that doesn't look good actually. So I'll just Control Z. I will use form later. Okay, I'll show you that how we can do that. Let me just save it and we'll see if that, yeah, this is working fine. You can see we have now much better looking page over here. We have a lot of input which we can fill, and then it should be working in the expected way. So here we can see, okay, book description is there, but we can do one more thing here. Instead of putting book description in the same row, I can take it out in a separate row. Why? Because I want that to stretch to the full screen. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is I will just cut it from here. Okay, not this one, but the last one. Sorry, it is going to be published here, book. There's something wrong happened here. So book name is there, book code is there, book price is there, book page count is there, author is there, published here is there, and then this should be actually description. Okay, so yeah, this is fine. Now I'm going to cut this column from here, and then I'm going to create one more row here down below. So I'll say iron row. It's as easy as that. So I'll just paste it here, and then this is going to be of size 12. Let me save it and see how it works. Yeah, we have pretty much big book descriptions input so that we can fill a lot of data over there, and then this should be working fine. If we don't need this, of course you can play with this design and make it beautiful as per you want. Okay, but for now we have all those data in place, and those data is getting binded using this V model also. Okay, so far we are good, and then we will be having those book object, and you can, I'll show you that if we are going to put all those data, this book object is going to change. How we can see that? We'll just go in components. This is how we are going to debug our Vue application. For that we have Vue dev tools. If you guys are not aware of that, you can search it online, and you will, this is extension, and you can download this extension in Chrome. Okay, for other browser also they provide this extension, you can download there as well. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just open this home page, and then I have iron page, iron content, and inside that we already saw that iron router is there, and then inside that we have book add page. Correct? Now you can see this book data is reactive. So what I'll do here is I'll just type name here, and we'll see if this works in the expected way. So I'll say I'll say Narnia. Okay, now you can see we have book name over there with the name Narnia. Okay, and then we can say NA or NIA. That's going to be book code. You can see book code is also created over there. Then similarly we can set price as well. So what I'll say in this case, let's say 2000. You can see 2000 and it's completely reactive. So if I'll change this value, you can see that in DevTools it is changing, right? This is how we are binding V model with the book object data. Okay, so let's make it 2000, and then finally I will be having page count. Let's say it has 978 page count, and then author is, I'm going to be the author of this book, so I'll say Muhammad Zaid Hussain, and published year is 2024, right? Why it's giving error? Page count, okay, it needs to be of 4 length, I believe. So let's go back here, page count, okay, so minimum can be minimum can be 2 at least, not 2, yeah, at least 2. So here I'm going to say okay, page count will be, let me refresh the page once more. And so you guys already saw that how we can see that data in the view, so we don't need this. Let me close this. So I'll just type the book name. This time I'm going to say The Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, and then book code is going to be NAR, and price I'm going to set as 2000. Page count is 987, for example, and then author name, I'm going to be the author of this book. So I'll type my name. Cool. And then publish year is 2024. Alright, no, not in this year, I'm going to publish it in the next year, 2025. And then the book description. So I will just put some dummy data over here, right? And then if I'll open the DevTools, you will be able to see all those details over there in the book object. Let me show you that. What I'll do is I'll just select this component, or this here, and then inside grid, not grid, here book add, we have book add component. And then if I'll open this book, you can see those details over here, right? But we have one more thing, ID is not there. Why? Because ID will be only coming in case when we are going to save this book. Okay, once this book is saved, in that case only we will be having this book IDs. Okay, so now we are done with the design of this ad book. We have the data over there, right? Now let's create API, not API, but this time first we are going to prepare those data, and we are going to integrate one API, and we are just assuming that API exists there. Okay, even though it is not there as of now, we'll create that in the next video, but we should be able to trigger some API, and we should be able to send this data to the API. Later on, if we'll make that API, it should be working fine. Okay, how we can do that? Let's see. So how we did in login, right? We created one store over there for auth store. We created a store with the name auth store, right? So in Vuejs video, we saw that how we can follow a modular way of creating a store. So for each of the functionality, actually we need to create a store. We should create a store so that we can handle all those data. We can store all those data at, with the specified name. Okay, so now I'm going to create one more store here. So for that I'll say okay, one more folder should be there with name book and then store. Okay, now we know that how we are going to create this book store. Of course we should have 5 files over there. Very first file is going to be index file, right? And then followed by state.js, where we'll define all the states of our book store. That is nothing but the variable which we are going to manage across the application. So next I'm going to say getters. If a store will be there, then of course getters will be there. Next, what we need, mutations, and if getters is there, of course mutations will be there, right? Now we should have last actions .js, we can say. Okay, now let me export it one by one so that we should be able to register it on the main store. How we can do that, we will see that. Of course already we did that, but this way we can make sure like we are more comfortable with Vuejs store. Okay, so here I'm going to say export constant and actions. All right, I'll save it. I'll just copy this since I'm going to use similar kind of structure. So I'll say just getters, so that I don't have to type lot more. Okay, so similar I am going to, in case of mutations, I'll type mutations. Cool, I'll just save it. Now in case of state, what I'm going to say, it goes not this, I'm going to say export, but this time I'm going to copy that from auth store because I don't want to, of course, write this much of code. I'll just change the name and it will work. So far we are good, right? So export constant, and then in this case I'm going to, in this case we don't have the concept of logged in user because that is already being stored in auth store, but this time we'll be having books, and this books will be empty array by default, right? And then we can have book as well, right? Not book, but we can say opened book. Opened book is nothing. Then we are going to update the book details, right? We'll make a list page, we'll put an action icon over there, create, or you can say create. Already we can put edit icon over there, and on click of edit it should again redirect to add book page, and then based on the ID we should be able to update the book details, right? So for that I'm going to say opened book. Okay, opened. Okay, I'm going to follow opened book, right? And by default it's going to be null. Cool. So as of now we need just two details. I'll save it. And then we need all these. Okay, we have these two details over there, so we need getters as well. For that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this getters, and then I'm going to paste it here, but I'll change the name. So I need what? Get books. Okay, and then next what I need is get opened book. Okay, so in this case I'm going to return books, but in this case I'm going to return opened books. Opened book, not books but book. Let me save it and let me verify it once more if it is booked. Yeah, book. Copy it and go back to getters. I'll just paste it, save it. Fine. Now we should have a mutations for this variable as well, right? So for that, what mutation is going to do, actually it will just, it is basically responsible for mutation of the state variable. That means if we want to change the state variable, we of course need to use mutation. We need to commit mutation, then only we are going to change the state variable, or else we should not change state variable directly because it may cause error in the application. So I'm just going to copy this mutations from here, and then I'm going to paste mutations here as well. And then this time I'm going to use set books. Okay, so what this books, okay, I'm going to say books, and in this case what it is going to do is state dot books, simply it will assign books. Okay, but then I should have one more function. In that case we should be able to push the new book. Okay, only single new book. So in that case what I'll say is set book. Okay, what it will do is it will just append one more item in the existing books. And how we can do that is we can say, okay, destructure, not destructure but spread the existing books which you have, and then add a single new book in that. Okay, now we have two mutation functions ready over there. So I need one more functionality for opened books. So I'll say set opened book, and then here also we'll be receiving book details. So I'll say opened book, and then I'm going to assign this book. Fine, not like this, but I'm going to say, okay, just spread all those properties present inside this opened book, right? And then override the latest one. Fine, we are good with the mutation. Finally, we need to deal with the action. So what this action will do is, we should have a method here, since this action will return always a promise function, right? So we can say, okay, async, I need couple of method here. First one is of course going to be create book, right? So I'll say create book, and then how our action method is going to be, you can see here, this is the signature of the action button, not action button but actions method, right? So we just need to remember it, how this commit and dispatch, from where it is coming. So this commit and dispatch is of course coming from Vuex store. So when we are going to use these actions, when we are going to register this actions method on a main Vuex store, that time what this Vuex store is doing, Vuex store is saying, okay, I will provide you a context. Basically you can, instead of this, you can just remove it and can say context. Okay, then using this context, this is nothing but a Vuex context, and you can say context.commit, you can say context.dispatch. Okay, so this is just a short format of importing the method directly from the object. So I've used like this. Okay, if you are comfortable with context or other way, you can just use with that. Okay, so here this time I'm not going to use login data, instead I'll say book data. Okay, and then finally what I'm going to do before calling API over here, since we are going to call of course API over here, once the API is successful, I'm going to commit the mutation, right? And which mutation I'm going to commit? I'll say book. So how I'm going to do that? I'm going to go back in mutation. We need to use this method over there, right? So I can say set book, and then I'll go back to actions, and here I'll say set book, and then we are going to provide those book data. Okay, actually this should not be book data, but instead it should be a latest book data, which we will be getting after the book has been saved. So that book will have ID there as well. Okay, so one more thing we need to commit here is, we can say commit. Okay, since we'll just push that data into the view, not view but in the books object, right, books array, we also need to set opened book, since now that book is opened, right, by default, because we have saved that book. So for that I'm going to say this is completely on you, how you want to make functionality. Okay, so I'll say okay, book data, cool, save it. Now I need API for that, right? So that will get back those data. So what I'll say is, I'll just go back in URL, and this time what I'm going to say is export constant, and I'll say book base URL, I'll say, cool. So this is going to be books, of course, and then I'll say export, let me put semicolon here. Of course in JavaScript it's optional, but if you'll put it, it looks good. So export constant, and I'll say create book URL. Fine. So here I'm going to say not this, I'll say base URL plus book base URL plus, I'll say slash create book, cool. And then we need two more API, CVV. So here I need update as well. So update book URL, and then here what I'm going to do is, instead of create, we need ID over here. Okay, so, and since this is going to be a constant variable, right, we won't be having ID here. For that, what I'm going to use is, I'm going to say okay, this is the placeholder. So when I'm going to use this update book URL, I will replace this placeholder with the actual ID, right? That will work. So I'll say id as well there, and then here I'm going to say not this way, but I'm going to use just single curly braces id, and then I'll say update. Cool. So this is the convention we are going to use to create the API. Okay, API path. So we have create book URL, we have update book URL, and then we need get book URL as well. Book, not book, but the book's URL. Okay, so this time book base URL should work in the expected way. We don't need more path over there. Slash book should get, when we'll call this slash books, we should get all those data. So finally we need one more URL over there, that is going to be get book URL, get book by ID. Okay, get book by ID, and this time if we'll call this API, we should get book detail with the specific ID. That means we'll be getting one book detail with the specific ID. So again I'm going to do the same thing here. What I'll do is just I'll copy this. Okay, I'll paste it here, but this time what I'm going to do is book base URL is slash books, right? And then I'm going to say okay, you need to provide ID as well. So I'll say ID, right? I'll save it, and then for all of those URLs I have to define a functionality here, right? So I'll say okay, login is there, that's completely fine. We need 4 different methods as well. So in this case what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get book, get books in this case, and I will be creating post API since I will be passing some filters in that API so that we can filter books based on certain data, right? So let it be post API. If you guys want it to be get API, you can make it as a get API as well. That totally depends on you. Now next what I'm going to say is I need get, not get, but I need create book there. Okay, so I'll say create book, and then in that case also we'll be having those data and everything, right? But the URL is going to be different. So in this case we'll be having create book URL, fine, and get books means we'll be having get books. If we have defined there, let's go back and we'll see get books URL is there, fine. So I'll just close this and I'll say get books URL. Okay, now since we have create book, we'll have get books, and then we should have update as well. So I'll say update, right? But in this case we need to update, we need to update the ID, update using ID, right? For that we need the specific, if you'll go back in URL, this ID placeholder should be actually replaced with the ID of the book, right? For that what I'm going to do is I'm going to say okay, ID will be here, and then this data is actually book data, right? So it must have that ID. So I'll say data.id, right? But since we are following MongoDB, so we'll be having data._id, or else we can say data.id as well over there. Okay, now we have that ID in place. So what I will do here is I will say okay, get me update book URL, and then I'll call replace. Okay, and then what data we need to replace? So we need to replace that placeholder ID with the actual ID. So I'll pass ID over here. Now we will have a complete path for this update book over here. Okay, this should be working fine, and then we need one more API, and that should be get book by ID API. Okay, get book by ID, and here in this case also we need to pass ID. So how we are going to do, but this get book by ID we don't need any filter, right? Since we just need a single book, and that should be coming based on the ID itself. So I'll just say okay, the same way I'm going to take ID from here. Okay, so now we have ID over there, and then instead of data, okay, data, let it be there, data, and then we can say okay, we need get book by ID URL, right? So let's go back to URL and we'll see if we have defined. Yes, we have defined that. So I'll come back to API and I will say, okay, URL, if it is there or not. Okay, it is there. So I'll say replace again, and then here I'll say just replace that ID placeholder with the actual ID. Okay, but in this case what I'm going to say is this request should be of type get. That means request method should be get. So if it is get request, of course we don't need to pass data. Okay, rest of things will be as it is. I don't need data, I just need ID over here. I'll save it. We have all those API ready in place, and then what I'll do is I'll go back to actions, book store actions, and here what I'm going to do is I'll say constant data, or we can say book equals to await. First I'm going to what I'm going to do here is I'll just import API so that we can use this API here, API function here, and we should be able to trigger those API. So I'll import this API here, and then we know that we have created a lot of functionalities on those APIs. So I'll say API dot create book, we can see there, right? So I'll just call create book, and then we'll pass the data here. So I'll pass the same data which I am getting it from the parameter. So I'll say book data dot data, and similarly I'll say app options, and I'll say book data dot app options. In this case I don't need to send params and headers because I don't want that. So that is of course completely option which we have created before. So then finally we will be having book, but this we need to put await as well, since this is going to be return a promise, right? So instead of book data I'm going to put book here. All right, now we have a functionality in actions. Using that we can trigger a API to create a book. Okay, let's go back to before going back, what I'm going to do is we need to register this book store as well, right? For that what I'm going to do is I'm going to import all those state actions and everything. For that I'll just go back here and I'll copy and paste, because same thing we are going to do for each and every store, only the functionality and data will be changed, right? And finally I'm going to import this book store here. I'll say import star as book store. This is how you are going to import a different store and then register on the view instance. Okay, so I'll say book store this time, and then of course index.js. From there it will get imported, and here we need to define the name first. So I'm going to say bookstore, and then I'm going to assign spread all those properties here. So here I'll say bookstore, and then I should make this namespace as true so that we should be able to use this store with its name bookstore. Cool. So now we have registered the bookstore on the Vuejs. Fine, and then we'll go back to add book page. Okay, here we need that actions method, and we know that we already used that before, how we can map those actions function to our component or to our page, right? For that what we need to do is we just will say okay, use map actions. Cool. And from where we are going to import this? Of course we are going to import this from Vuejs, right? Now this map actions we are going to use inside the method blocks. Very first parameter is going to be the store name. In this case it is going to be bookstore, and then again we are going to use object, and in this object we are going to define all those names, all those actions methods name which we are going to use here. And since we are going to use this object notation, so we have option to put the alias name for the specific action function as well. Okay, so here I'll say save book. Okay, but I have created actions with name create book, so I can say the original name in this string. It is going to be create book, but this create book will get imported or get mapped with the name save book. Cool. So here, and why I did that, because this create book already exists on this specific method, okay, on this specific page. So it will give us error because we will have two method with the same name. Cool. For that I have given the alias name, and then using this alias name we should be able to call this actions method. Let's see how we can do that. So instead of not here, okay, create book, we are routing this, we don't need here, and I'll say this dot save book, right? And this dot save book is expecting data, of course, in this format. The functionality which we created, we should provide the data in the same functionality, right? So here what I'm going to say is we need this dot book, right? But before that, what I'm going to say is, okay, we are going to spread the book, not book, but we should be able to access using this. But one more thing to be noticed here, we have certain variable which is of type number. So what are all those variables? If you will see here, book price is one of those, and then page count, right? Book slide, not book price, page count, published year, right? Okay, so I'm going to convert that variable into the number. So how can I do that? Of course I'll do book price, okay, and then I'm going to say parse, not integer, it's going to be float, right? So I'll say this dot book dot, what should I give here? The same key I need to give here, book price, or we can say 0 if it is not there, right? We book price, and then we have page count there as well, right? So I'm going to use page count, and then we have one more over there, published year, so I need to use published year as well. So I'll say published year. Cool. Now finally we have data, and then do we need to send app option as well? No, we don't need to send that, because as of now that is not required. So I'll say I'll leave it as it is, as empty object for now. If later we want to say we want to send some data from this component or from this page, so we can send that in app options, and those data will be, of course, of app use. Okay, I'm going to save it, and then okay, that is it. So our expectation is this, when we'll click on save, it should trigger this functionality, create book, and then finally that specific action method should get called, and finally the respective API should be called. Let's see that if that is working or not. So I'll go in network tab, and I'll clear all those console, and I'll fill the required details. I'll say Chronicles of Narnia, right? And then book code is NAR, and price I'm going to say it as $2,000. Page count, let's say 678, and author name is going to be John, right? Published year is going to be 2025, and then we can put certain description for the book. I'm just going to put a random value over there. Okay, now if I'll click on save, this should trigger a API. Okay, let me click on save. You can see an API has been triggered with the name create, but of course we are getting 404 page not found. Why? Because that API is not yet ready. We have not created that API still. Okay, and then we can verify all those details that we are sending it from here. So these are details which we are capturing from user. Of course, that is completely fine. We don't have any issue with that. So that is it for this video, guys, and in the upcoming videos we are going to create all those APIs which is required. Of course, we will be creating create APIs, and then we'll create update API, we'll be creating get all API. Once we are able to save the data, once we are able to update the data, then not update, but once we are able to save the data, then we will be designing the list page, so that whenever we save any book, new book, that book should be listed there in that list page. And for that we are going to create custom of one more custom component, and we'll name that as maybe app table, and we'll see that in action. And that is going to be very interesting topic, how we are going to create custom component with name app table, right? You can use that app table component in your company as well. That will help you all across your development, right? Now if you guys face any issues or any problem, you can put down your comment in the comment section, and you can also hit like if you like this video, right? We'll meet in the next video.